This is the Wisconsin Sports Zone Update.
Well, every player but one was on the field at Packers practice today as they started getting ready for their trip to Denver. The one guy missing, running back Josh Jacobs, who was riding a stationary bike during the portion of practice open to the media. Sunday's matchup with the Broncos. One of the closing stretch games for teams fighting for the playoffs, including the real matchup with the Bears next Saturday. But Coach Matt LaFleur not shying away from the challenge.
There's a lot of great opportunity that goes with that. So it is what it is. We knew going into this year, looking at it, and there's always going to be surprises every year. But I would say just our division alone, we knew it was going to be a grind. We're going to find a way to get through it. Hopefully, just continue to focus on the process and get a little bit better each and every day, and just try to hone in at one game at a time.
With the Packers and Broncos on Sunday, kick is at 3:25. Turning to Wisconsin, they're going to have a different offensive line coach for a fifth time in the last 6 seasons. That's after A.J. Blazek was fired following 2 years. Wisconsin expected to replace him with former Arkansas offensive line coach Eric Mateos. UL wide receiver Trent and the seventh player to head the transfer portal so far at 26 catches for 211 yards this season. The transfer portal doesn't officially open until January 2nd.
Small business owners want the same thing, to make their business succeed. At Rural Mutual, they help that happen. As the third largest writer of commercial business in Wisconsin, they take the time to learn your business so they can properly protect you. Call your local agent today or visit ruralmutual.com.
Keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, it's game day for the Wisconsin basketball team. They're out in Nebraska, where they're going to take on the 23rd ranked Cornhuskers, who are unbeaten. Tip is coming up at 8. Bucks back in action tomorrow night against the Celtics. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
Why has Bo Nix helped win games when a lot of young quarterbacks struggle?
Well, I think it's a byproduct of just the collective. I think he's an excellent quarterback, and obviously he does a hell of a job in those 2-minute situations, and they've had quite a few comeback victories. I think 9 of the 11 games they've come back in the fourth quarter, and so I think that obviously deservingly so he gets a ton of credit for that. But I also think that just when you combine that with the rest of the guys that he has on his offense, obviously Sean does a hell of a job calling plays he has for a really long time, and then the defense and special teams. I mean, it's just a really good football team. There's just not really a weak link out there. You look at their front, their backers, their back end. They've got players across the board, how hard they play, how hard they finish and tackle, and it's going to be a great test for us.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
A couple of sound bites from Matt LaFleur earlier today. I just wanted to cut up a couple comments when he was asked about the Broncos. Bo Nix, and then you hear a little bit of commentary on the defense and how hard they hit and they fly and their talent, and Vance Joseph, the job that he has done. Just some commentary from Matt LaFleur. That's today's presser. I think that was at 11. Just to kind of get us into the show. That's where I want to begin. I want to begin with Packers versus Broncos and spend a couple of minutes on that. And then tonight's show might be a fun change of pace for some of you if you're like, no, I only want 2 hours Packers. Well, we'll have some of that. But I want to mix in some other things as well. I want to talk about some more Brewers rumors, some big MLB stories. Friend Andrew Wagner is going to join us. I thought of him yesterday with the passing of Raul Malo. Andrew, as crabby and jaded and, quite prickish as he can be, to be honest. I do love his baseball commentary, and I might ask him a Mavericks question or two because I know he loves the Mavs. So we're going to do that at 4:35. Jesse Temple at 5:35. So we'll get our Badgers hit in for the week. We can talk about some players that have announced they will be hitting the transfer portal. Tretch Kekahuna, and there was Cade Giacomelli, which probably not as big of a deal. He really didn't have a role at all this year, which is kind of crazy. He was hurt, but I guess I just would have thought he would have a little bit more of a consequential season because he looked really good last year, especially because they wanted to run the ball more, whatever, maybe fit, whatever. We talked about some players I recorded to Jesse this afternoon that have departed in the portal. Some of the players in this recruiting class, they have a new offensive line coach. So we'll talk about that. I believe that's the third in 5 years, or the third of Luke Fickell's tenure, I believe, and 5 since 2021 or whatever it's been. So not a position you'd expect for there to be a lot of uncertainty and turnover in a program like Wisconsin, but we'll talk about the O-line coach, that situation, and I'll pick his brain on Badgers basketball. At 5 o'clock, I'm sorry if this isn't your bag. I just have to say some things about Giannis. It's not really even about the Bucks. It's just about him. So if you're like, man, I don't care about Spain pick and roll. I don't either. It's December. But this Giannis thing has reached the point where I just kind of got to complain and get some things off my chest. So we'll do that at 5. Mix in your calls throughout as well at 608-321-1670. All right, back to what Matt LaFleur said. First, I just have to tip my cap, and I'm sorry, I recognize the voice, but I can't place who it is. This is the type of question in a press conference I love, by the way.
Why has Bo Nix helped win games when a lot of young quarterbacks struggle?
Bang. That was 4 seconds. That was beautiful.
Why has Bo Nix helped win games when a lot of young quarterbacks struggle?
That's all it needs to be.
Well,
And it doesn't need to be, Matt, you see all the time in the NFL, young quarterbacks, they come in and they struggle. And some have said that, organizations fail quarterbacks before quarterbacks fail organizations. And, it can kind of be a bumpy ride. But Bo Nix, here's a guy who just asked the question.
Why has Bo Nix helped win games when a lot of young quarterbacks struggle?
God, I like that. I left that into the intro on purpose because I like that's succinct. That's a good question. Earlier today, Bill posed a question. Said, is it very boilerplate? Let's just get some Packers commentary going. Let's get some calls going. Let's talk Packers. What's your confidence level going into the Denver game this weekend? And if you want to talk about that, we can. I feel very excited about this game. I think the Packers have got a great shot. It's going to be tough. I'm not guaranteeing a win. I don't know who I'm going to pick tonight, but I'm very optimistic and excited for this game. But as we got into this conversation, I turned it around on Bill and I said, okay, Bill, I'm hearing a lot of, maybe not even pessimism, but I'm hearing a lot of concern from Packers fans. I don't hear a lot of Packers fans who are jacked up saying, I think they have a great shot to win. I'm excited for the game. They're playing really well. Christian Watson, the Powers, all these things. I hear a lot of Packers fans who are like, oh, I don't know. It doesn't seem likely. I wouldn't pick them to win. I wouldn't bet them to win. And I asked Bill, the Packers opened as 1.5 favorites, and it has since moved, at least I've just checked DraftKings, it's moved to 2.5. which means money has come in on the Packers. Vegas thought coming into this game, the Packers are the better team, even on the road. And the Broncos are the 1 seed currently in the AFC. They're 11-2. The Packers are the 2 seed at 9-3-1. Typically not a spot you would see the road team being favored, right? You might look at this game and think, oh, the Packers are favored. Not the most crazy thing in the world, but you might look at that a little sideways. So I said, Bill, give me your take on why do you think the Packers are favored in this game? Because Bill didn't have a super high confidence level. Most callers and most commenters on Bill's show today didn't. So why are they favored? Tell me why they're favored. Well, we started with the quarterback, and I think that's probably the biggest reason the Packers are favored in this game is Jordan Love versus Bo Nix. Again, and I keep reiterating this because this is a very difficult balance to strike among Packers fans and on Packers Twitter and in the Packers blogosphere, which is an Aaron Nagler, Corey Benke term that I think applies just in the general Packers sphere. It's a very difficult balance to strike between, I think Jordan Love is very good. Not telling you he's perfect. I think he's playing maybe at a top 5 level. Not saying he's Josh Allen. I think he's having a great year. Not telling you he's Aaron Rodgers at his, you know what I mean? Like, I think Jordan Love on offense has been their identity this year. They haven't been able to run the ball at an elite level. Until Christian Watson's return, they haven't really had one offensive weapon who's been a constant presence throughout and been a big piece of their identity throughout. Tucker Kraft was that, but he's been hurt now for the better part of 2 months. I don't remember exactly how many games, but Carolina, Philly, New York, Minnesota, Chicago. Like I would say that Tucker Kraft was a huge part of their identity, but he hasn't been around. For the most part, this Packers offense, which has been very good, has been driven and defined by Jordan Love. I think he's the identity of this offense. And while the defense is really good, right, like to have an offense at a high level, and if you look at most databases, if you're looking at EPA or EPA per play or whatever, the Packers are coming out near the top, in the top 3, in the top 5, and Jordan Love is at the heart of that. I think Denver's roster top to bottom is probably better than the Packers. I don't think their best defensive player is as good as Micah Parsons, but there are very few players in the world that are as good as Micah Parsons. But I think if you were to stack up cornerback 1, linebacker 1, like if you were to match up every starter, I think the Broncos would probably win a lot of those one-on-ones. I think the Broncos roster is probably better. They're at home, and yet they are 2.5-point underdogs, I think mostly because of Jordan Love. I think Bo Nix is fine. I think Jordan Love has been the identity, and in many instances and in many stretches of games this year, been the straw that stirs the drink. I'm just looking at Sumer Sports, mostly because I can pull up some of these stats that are bandied about by the smart people. So I'm looking at EPA per play. Jordan Love is first. He's in front of Drake May, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Daniel Jones is still at 5. You have to go down to 14th to find Bo Nix. He's below Mac Jones, above Jackson Dart. I set the minimum at 100 plays. So like any backup that's played in any reasonable action this year, they're included. Mac Jones has actually been pretty good. Bo Nix is down towards middle of the pack. I don't think his arm talent is nearly as great as Jordan Love. He can maybe run a little bit, but I wouldn't consider him a great runner either. I think a big reason why the Packers were favored in this game, and maybe most of the reason, is because of the quarterback. At the end of the day, the team with the better quarterback, as long as the two teams are of reasonably comparable talent, and I think the Packers and Broncos are reasonably. I think the Broncos' talent top to bottom is better, but it's reasonably close. So tie or close game goes to the quarterback, and that's why the number is where you see it is. And also, betting lines and betting markets, people who bet on games are a little bit less interested in record, a little bit less interested in, some of the results week to week. They're a little bit more interested in the process. You know what I mean? And the process with the Broncos has not always been there. I was reading Jacob Westendorf. I saw Bill Huber quote the story at Sports Illustrated. I'm just going to read you this little blurb. The story of the Broncos season has been winning close games, with Bo Nix making plays in the fourth quarter to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Nix has a league-high 5 fourth-quarter comebacks, highlighted by a 33-point fourth quarter against the Giants on October 19th. Overall, he's thrown 9 interceptions and ranks 23rd out of 27 qualifying passers in passer rating. So that little blurb just highlighting they have a lot of fourth-quarter comebacks, which is a good trait, but doesn't that also tell you that they're trailing in a lot of those fourth quarters, right? If you look at point differential, something that the sharps look at a lot, if you listen to people do power rankings, especially in larger sample sports, and football isn't necessarily a larger sample sport, but now we're into, the second week of December, we can look at a sample size and draw some conclusions, not on the same level that we can about a baseball or a basketball team with 82 games or 160 plus games, but this is a little different, but still applicable. If you just look at point differential, and I'll split it up by conference, the Broncos, despite being the number 1 seed, are 5th in their own conference. They're behind the Texans, who nobody really thinks are world beaters. They're behind the Bills. And I feel like there are more questions than answers with the Bills every week. We all agree that Josh Allen is great, but what about the rest of it? The Colts, who haven't really looked elite in a while, and the Patriots. The Patriots have a really good point differential. They lead the AFC at plus 110. Now, the Seahawks, for reference, are tops in the NFC. They're plus 161. The Rams plus 152. So there are teams at the top of the NFC that are winning by much larger margins and outscoring their opponent at a much higher clip than the top teams in the AFC. But still, the Broncos are 5th. They're right above the Chiefs. They're pretty similar to the Chiefs and the Texans, who are good teams, not great teams. If you look at results against the spread this year, so teams in their record in covering the spread, Seattle is 1, the Rams are 2, New England is 3, Chicago is actually 4, San Francisco 5, Carolina 6, Jacksonville, New York Jets, Indianapolis, Dallas, Detroit, Miami. Where's Denver? The Giants, the Eagles, the Texans, the Chargers, still looking for Denver. Buffalo, Cincinnati, Green Bay, Tennessee, Arizona, Pittsburgh, Atlanta. Oh, there's Denver. I believe they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th from the top, which means they're 23rd. Denver, despite all their wins, are not inflating their point differential week by week. In fact, they're coming from behind in a lot of these games, needing to steal wins at the last second. They're not racking up really impressive wins. And what's funny about the Broncos is typically if a team has a really good point differential, you can circle 1 or 2 games where they really inflated it. The Broncos have, how many points did they beat the Cowboys by? They beat the Cowboys 44-24. The rest of the season, and the Bengals, who they blew out 28-3, has been really close. They beat the Titans by 8. They lost to the Colts. They lost to the Chargers. They beat the Eagles by 4, the Jets by 2, the Giants by 1, and they came from behind by like 28 points or something. They beat the Texans by 3, the Raiders by 3, the Chiefs by 3, Washington, who just lost to J.J. McCarthy, by the way, they took them to overtime and won by 1, and then the Raiders this last week by 7. And I know that the Raiders kicked the last-second field goal, and I'll give the Broncos credit. They probably just thought, we're going to get out of here with a win. We don't need to stack up stats. I know. I think the reason why the betting line for the Packers this weekend is -2.5, and maybe it'll even continue to go up. It's already gone up a whole point. We'll watch it throughout the week. I think the reason the Packers are favored by 2.5, despite having the worst record, despite being on the road, and despite the Broncos being really good, is the world trusts Jordan Love right now a whole lot more than it trusts Bo Nix. And we've watched the Broncos week to week and kind of thought, like they're good, but I'm not really blown away. I'm not really all that impressed week to week. Like, okay, you beat the Commanders by 1 in overtime. You know what I mean? Like you hung on to beat the Raiders by 3, and it was ugly. There was a week, I think it was after the Raiders game, where I remember listening to Cowherd, who's a bigger Bo Nix guy than anybody, it seems. Like always bringing up Bo Nix. He's like, man, Sean Payton's not going to deal with this forever. Like if this is how it continues to go, like they're going to go look for another quarterback this offseason. Like that conversation was happening about the team that's currently the 1 seed in the AFC, the Denver Broncos again. So I think that's the reason. It's the quarterback, and it's the fact that like the Broncos just really don't have any impressive wins recently. They could get one Sunday, but it would certainly be a buck from their recent trends. And when I say recent trends, it's been like the last 2 months. They just haven't blown anybody out, which is funny because once upon a time, we had the same complaints about the Packers. Well, they don't blow anyone out. Well, you know what I mean? I think the Packers have racked up more impressive wins recently, at least, than the Broncos have. It's one thing to only beat the Bengals by 9. It's another to beat the Raiders by 2 or the Commanders by 1 in overtime. The Commanders look like the worst team in football on Sunday, just a week after the Broncos fought tooth and nail to beat them at the very end of the game. They lost to J.J. McCarthy. They got pummeled by J.J. McCarthy, who's looked like probably the worst player in football at the most important position on the football field all year. No problem. Vikings had no issue. Broncos fighting tooth and nail to the final second, right? So just some thoughts on this matchup. If you have any thoughts on this, I'll take your Packers calls and texts next. And if you have nothing to say, if you're like, great, you nailed it, no notes. Perfect. That's fine as well. Then we'll get into some baseball headlines. Andrew Wagner going to join us at 4:35. We haven't talked to Wags in a while, so we'll chat about some of the rumors. Now, Nick Mears is getting mentioned as a Brewer that could potentially get moved. So we'll get into that along with McGill and Peralta and offseason budgets and spending and what is David Stearns doing. All of that coming up with Andrew Wagner at 4:35. But your call's next if you have anything to add at 608-321-1670.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
I text last night a GM in the league, and I said, if you had Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love both available on the market, he said, come on, 6'4", 220, doesn't throw picks, doesn't need a great O-line. He's like, every GM in the league would take Jordan Love. But you'll get pushback on that. And so, and I've thought about this before. What is it with Jordan Love? And my guess is if they win this weekend against Denver, he gets a 5-game winning streak. He just has never gone on that Favre heater or that Aaron Rodgers heater. And even the win over Chicago, you're like, well, it was the defense with an interception. But this is one of these, everything I want in my quarterback. Grateful, humble, hat on forward, adult, aggressive, but doesn't take unnecessary risks. He is the one quarterback in the league that's great, but nobody will crown him.
Some audio from Cowherd yesterday on Jordan Love. And I don't disagree. I don't know what crown him means. You know what I mean? Jordan Love's good. If we can all agree on that, you can decide to what degree. Like if you want to crown, he's a top 5 guy. You do that on your own time, I guess. Really the only battle that I fight with Jordan Love is like, there are plenty of people who are still like, but I don't know. Well, what do you need then? You know what I mean? He can't win a Super Bowl right now. It's December. You know what I mean? And if he doesn't win a Super Bowl this year and he melts down in the playoffs or something, well, then we'll talk about that now. I just thought it was interesting commentary from Cowherd. Why won't anyone crown him? It's like, well, you could. You know, like here, do it then. You know what I mean? Whatever crown him means. If you have any Packers Broncos calls or thoughts, I'll take your calls. And then we're going to get into some baseball stuff. Andrew Wagner going to be here in about 10 minutes. Always excited to chat with Andrew. I'm sure he'll be in a great mood as always. 608-321-1670 Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Grant, Clemhead Mike.
Hey, Clemhead, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Oh, good. There was some free food at work today. That always helps. Puts me in a chipper mood.
Nice. I went to a banquet today for our wealth management guy, and we had a great big free fancy meal at the Lake Wissota Golf Club. We had chicken and pork and all the fixings, and yeah, it's free food's the best. Grant, it always tastes better.
You know, I was talking about this with a friend earlier, Mike. It's very trendy with people my age to poo-poo the work pizza party. You know, I don't want a pizza party. I want a raise. I want more time. Well, look, I want a raise too. Like I want all that stuff. But let's not act like free food every once in a while just isn't great. Like I will appreciate the free food at work. That will help get me through a long work day. Like, oh, I don't have to worry about lunch today. How great is this? You know what I mean? I appreciate free food. That doesn't go lost on me.
Yeah, where I worked, we had free beer a lot, so that was always nice. We'd knock off a little early.
I actually think there was free beer downstairs earlier today, but when I saw it, it's 10. I'm like, well, I got a lot of live radio between now and the time I'm going to bed. I don't think that's a good idea.
I want to see you on the air drunk. That'd be a great episode. That'd be awesome. You could bring in one of the people to fill in for you if you tip over, but that would be a great show.
I just start to fall asleep. I think it'd be fun until I started to fall asleep. That'd be the problem. But what's up? Sorry, I'm rambling.
Well, no, it's not even really all that Packer related. I just had a funny thing today. I was just talking to Thomas T over there on the live stream that we went shopping today of Christmas ornaments at Hallmark like we do every year. And we saw a Micah Parsons. They always have the NFL players every year. Had a Micah Parsons Dallas Cowboys number 11 jersey ornament hanging up there.
On sale, I hope.
God,
on sale, I hope.
Oh, no, they put these things out in July. You know, it's like, man, I just wish I had somebody that was, I knew that was a Dallas Cowboys fan, but I don't like to know those people. So God, I would just throw away $25 and just buy it and send it to him.
It'd be a funny
Merry
gift.
effing Christmas. Yeah.
Remember when you had him?
Yeah. So no biggie. I just I like what you're saying so far about Jordan Love. He's we ripped that poor man so bad the last few years, but I think Goody's faith in him was really justified because he saw something in him that we didn't. So good job, Goody. I think Goody's done a great job. All these people that hate Goody and fire Goody, you can all just stick it.
Well, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, Clemhead. I appreciate it because we talked about the future contracts of Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst, right? And we were kind of doing a check-in on that. Like, all right, how do we feel? Because they're probably either going to be up for extensions or relieved of their duties after this season, based on what Ed Policy said before the season. And I think there's probably a lot more reticence among Packers fans with Matt LaFleur than there is with Brian Gutekunst. You can nitpick some of the things that Brian Gutekunst has done, but you can do that with every general manager. You know what I mean? Like, well, not Howie Roseman. Well, yeah, he drafted Jalen Reagor instead of Justin Jefferson once upon a time. Like, every general manager has a bad signing or a bad draft pick. I think the good has widely outweighed the bad with Brian Gutekunst. And I think, some of the biggest points of criticism, like, well, why'd you take Jordan Morgan? Look, that's not looking like a great pick. If he slides in and plays tackle next year and is good, well, that pick looks dramatically different, right? Well, why'd you draft Lucas Van Ness? Well, I'm not telling you that Lucas Van Ness is all of a sudden going to turn into Aaron Donald or whatever, but he's back at practice today. And if he helps as a rotational piece and makes a couple of plays down the stretch in the absence of Devontae Wyatt, like, all right, like that's not awful. You know what I mean? Just because a pick doesn't turn out to be a superstar doesn't mean they're a bust. Can they contribute? Can they be a rotational piece? Can they start 2 or 3 years down the line, right? Things like that. I think the biggest point of criticism for Goody right now is this last free agent signing class with Hobbs and with Banks, although I think there's a chance down the stretch if Hobbs just chimes in as a rotational piece that he serves the exact purpose that they signed him to serve. Banks, I don't think any of us thought would be a superstar. I think if he just mellows out and we're not even really talking about him in the final month, then I think he's, again, filling the role that they signed him to fill. Here's a little bit more. You talked about Jordan Love and Goody seeing something with Jordan Love. Here's a little bit more from Cowherd, and he talks about traits. I'm a traits guy, right? Just the bare ingredients, the raw ingredients of what makes up a quarterback.
So Jordan Love is now finally making a surge toward the MVP odds. It's really interesting, and I'm guilty of this. We tend to crown young quarterbacks probably before they need to be crowned. I loved Bo Nix as a rookie. He still had a lot of growth. Jaden Daniels, I'm like, that's the best rookie quarterback I've ever seen. There's only one quarterback in the NFL, it feels like, is the opposite, who's been great for several years, and nobody will crown him. Jordan Love of the Packers. I would call it the Colin criteria. There are certain things I love, and he checks all the boxes. His hat's on forward. He's great at the podium. He's big. I like traits. Short memory after bad interceptions. He's mobile, but actually prefers the pocket. He's aggressive on the deep ball. He loves to throw it deep, spreads the ball around to teammates, never gets in trouble at the podium. Yet outside of Wisconsin, people are really, whoa.
I love Cowherd. The traits, though. Huge arm. And this is the thing now, I think probably more so in 2025 than ever before. You notice with quarterbacks that are drafted, teams have gotten smart and wise to the strategy of building a team around a lesser quarterback or a quarterback on a rookie deal. So it's like, well, we'll take Bo Nix and we'll build around him and we'll make it work. We'll take Mac Jones, we'll build around him, it'll work. Where years ago, like those guys are probably 3rd or 4th round picks. Jordan Love is a guy who has the traits to be not just a guy you build around, but a guy who can lead your offense because of the large arm, can pierce through the elements, big, strong, physical, right? The intangibles are there as well, as Cowherd talked about. So he, in an era where quarterbacks are drafted all the time, where it's like, hardly perfect, but smart coach, good GM can make it work. Jalen Hurts is that way to a widely different degree, right? He's got all the running traits and some of the throwing traits, but again, you build around him, good personnel, it works. Jordan Love is kind of the opposite of that. Mike in Portage says, hey, Grant, I don't know if you're receiving messages. I sent you a PM, a private message on Twitter. I didn't want to send it here. I'm done with the stuff from the morning show this morning. Like, I'm not gonna take it from you guys anymore. Mike, you're good. Johnny Cribbage says, bye, Sharon. Breaking news. Sharon Moore's fired by Michigan for cause. Inappropriate relationship with an assistant. I saw Justice Escada point out that Matt LaFleur is from like 2 hours from Ann Arbor. Interesting. So Michigan now becoming an open job really late in the cycle. We'll see where they go with that. That should be interesting. Rock and Rick says, karma sucks. Clemhead don't jinx us. Micah isn't hurt anymore for now. I don't know if you're talking about the back injury or Clemhead's ornament shopping trip today. You're absolutely right. We'll take a break, come back. Andrew Wagner on the other side. Talk a little baseball. The latest with the Brewers, another Brewers reliever getting thrown in trade rumors, which intrigues me. Also, I would like to bitch about David Stearns. Does anyone mind? Would anyone mind? No? Okay, we'll do that with Andrew on the other side as well. Be right back.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Fan favorite, all-time great Met is out the door. Joining Brandon Nimmo, Edwin Diaz is now Pete Alonso. I've said this in the past, and I still believe it, that David Stearns is smart, has a plan, and we will ultimately see what that plan becomes. But there is no doubt that he is putting extra pressure on himself right now to get it right, and to get it right quickly with the departures of some big-time fan favorites. With the way things are going right now, it's hard to even envision what will happen next. Big moves expected to continue as the Mets reshape a roster after one of the most disappointing seasons in Mets history. We'll have much more throughout the day as news continues to break here on SNY.
That's Steve Gelbs earlier today from the winter meetings. David Stearns, not a popular man among Mets fans right now. I'm just reading the tweets, and I got to say, and we can discuss this with our guest here, Andrew Wagner now joins us. I am not the world's biggest David Stearns fan. Personally, nothing against him. I just don't think he did a very good job here at the end. And then he got his feelings hurt that everyone got mad about the hater trade. So he became an advisor for a year. And then everyone blamed Mark Attanasio because he was so mean. And he must have, he was the reason. He was the one who traded David Stearns. So Andrew, right. Andrew, is anything, I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but is anything I just said really unfair?
I mean, not really. I mean, listen, I don't think the hater trade has much to do with Stearns leaving as we want to think it does. I think the opportunity to go to New York, go back home, and the challenge of doing it with money, which sounds really stupid because this is the dumb thing about baseball.
Yeah,
and this just chaps my ass every single time someone starts talking about spending money and spending money. Spending money definitely gives you an advantage, but it doesn't guarantee anything. And let's look really micro here. 4 games into the season, the Brewers had their asses absolutely decimated by the Yankees, who are right behind the Dodgers. Right at the end of the season, the Brewers were the number 1 team. The Yankees were, I think, a wild card team. Toronto won the division. And the Yankees weren't there in the World Series. I think there was a challenge that Stearns saw in going to do it with money. Maybe he was fed up with Mark. I don't know. Listen, David's a robot. And funny thing that I heard on MLB Network today was Sherman was talking about the interview with Stearns yesterday and said, David Stearns giggled at a question that I asked yesterday. I'm like, well, first of all, David Stearns hates questions. And 2, he is devoid of human emotion. So there's no way in hell that he actually giggled at a reporter's question.
Maybe he was just he was just miming it. He just thought, oh, this is something that someone would laugh at, so I will make the laugh sound. Maybe that's
AI has really enhanced David's ability to interact. No, listen, the Mets have had a banner. I said on Twitter earlier, it's been a banger of an offseason right now for Stearnsy and company, but they're far from cooked. I'm not surprised that Stearns didn't re-sign Alonso, because whether you have money or not, long-term deals to one-dimensional aging stars rarely, if ever, pay off. Alonso is I think 40 or gonna be 40.
He's that old? I didn't know he was that old. Okay.
Yeah. He's pretty much limited to first base, and listen, he's not exactly stellar in he's a 40-year-old guy, which is playing, no matter what people think about first base, it's a demanding position. It requires some work. I mean, we've seen Reese Hoskins out there. It ain't pretty. I think they saw the writing on the wall. Maybe a few years less, and it's a different thing. I think this was the case of the Orioles came up and were willing to overspend and pay extra money and give an extra year because they had an absolute need. Whereas Stearns is like, hey, we're not against bringing this guy back, but not at 5 years.
You have to have a walkaway number, I'm sure, is something that he said, right? At a certain point, right. That's very David Stearns. Yeah.
You look at that, and listen, here's the thing is, what people overlook is Stearns has been there, what now, 2 years, 3 years? And he has revamped the farm system. I mean, the Mets have one of the top farm systems in baseball. They have a lot of young, highly touted prospects that are ready to get their due in the big leagues. And having those guys stuck behind, aging vets does not behoove you. He's not going to try and win on the margins in New York because you don't have to win on the margins in New York, but he's still going to try to win those margins. And I think that's what he's doing right now. The Edwin Diaz thing, you look at the contract that he got, it's not that far off from what Devin Williams got. And part of me wonders if Devin Williams took a $10 million discount if Stearns promised to not re-sign Alonso. Doesn't want to see that guy in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
But,
well, when Alonso comes back now, are they going to be able to do the tribute video, given that video is can they play that? I was something that was getting discussed. I saw on Twitter today too. I don't know. Were you surprised it was the Orioles? I would have thought
I'm really surprised it was the Orioles, but listen, they look at the Orioles look at last year as a failure, as do the Mets.
They should.
The Mets choked horribly. The Orioles were a very fancy pick to win it all going into the season, and the Orioles just kind of crapped their pants. They were abysmal. They needed help. They needed some pop. They see this, and this is the thing is with 2027 and all the BS that comes with it looming, some of these teams that are right on the cusp and have the wherewithal, I see them making, ridiculous moves and kind of overpaying just to get one last run in before the game shuts down and possibly reinvents itself.
Okay. Well, I hadn't thought of it from that direction. I think before we talk specifically about the Brewers, there's this constant battle on sports talk radio. It's should the Brewers do it this way, or should they do the go all in, tear it down, go all in, tear it down? And I feel like either way could work. They kind of seem like different sides of the same coin. I would rather do it this way, but the Orioles are the cautionary tale of how that can go really bad, right? You think it's your time and everything's popping, and you have one good year after 6 awful years, and then that's it. So I think they probably feel that as well. Well, this can't be it for us, so we'll overpay for Alonso.
Yeah, and I don't see the Brewers doing that. And listen, that's the big thing. And I've said this time and time again, this whole Marcus cheap thing. Yeah, you know what? He is definitely frugal. He operates it like a business and doesn't dip into his personal whatever. I get that argument of it. But at the same time, it's been proven time and time again that these long-term deals never pan out. And we saw it here. This is obviously apples and oranges when you're talking about Juan Soto and Bryce Harper and all those big deals. But you look at the long-term deals the Brewers have signed during the Atanasio era. People are still crowing about Jeff Suppan, 15 years later, when you knew that deal was going to end badly, but you needed it right now. Matt Garza, Kyle Loesch, we talk about 2019, the Brewers got Moustakas and Grandal on 1-year deals, right? If the Brewers could go out and get veterans on 1-year deals, they'd be spending money, I think, left and right. Even if they could get deals like Reese Hoskins, but that was, of course, because he was coming off injury. If the Brewers could get some of these guys on 2 or 3 year deals, I think they'd be a lot more active in the big time free agent market. But the fact is, these guys are looking for 4, 5, 6, 7-year deals. Yeah. And for a small market franchise, you just can't do that. 1, you can't forecast success long-term like that. 2, that these deals are going to end poorly. These guys are going to produce for 2, maybe 3 years at most. And then, it's science. Follow the science. Guys fall off as they get older. Now you're stuck with $25 million eating up a quarter of your payroll for a guy who can barely get off the bench. So, yeah, you'd like to see the Brewers spend money, but give them credit that they're not going out and making these deals that hamstring them for the long term. And that's what allows them to continue to be creative and be successful and be contenders every year.
So I want to talk about McGill and Mears because both of those names have been mentioned. I want to do those separately. What do you think of Freddie Peralta's availability or I don't even want to say availability. What do you think of the Freddie Peralta situation?
First of all, you mentioned Nick Mears, and I'm pretty sure he's throwing a perpetual bullpen session
He's
right
warming
now.
up as
And
we speak,
yeah, in a very empty and cold American Family field, he's out there throwing pens.
Mhm.
I think everyone's interested in Freddie Peralta, and how could you not be? The guy is one of the better pitchers in the game right now, despite his inability to pitch more than 4 or 5 innings.
Yeah.
And his contract is ridiculously cheap, which I think makes him even more attractive. Listen, if the Brewers hold all the cards here, obviously, they don't want to let him go for nothing. But he
they
also
can.
means they can. They can, and they've shown that they've done it. If someone means a lot to the organization, Willie Adames, they'll keep him around. I think they're going to have to get bowled over with just a massive haul to get him. And we're talking a couple of major league ready players, some top prospects, stuff like that. You're looking at like a 4-person package, especially because it's so cheap. That brings up the asking price a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm honestly 50-50 on it. Yeah, I think it all depends on what the offers are that are coming into Matt Arnold's phone. And if they get one that really bowls them over, then I think they do it. But I think they feel perfectly fine, and I feel like they don't think they're taking a risk if they hold on to him.
So
McGill, I wouldn't be shocked.
Well, McGill and the relievers are separate. What I've been saying about Peralta is if they deal him, it's not because they want to cut $8 million. It's because they get this awesome offer.
It's exactly it. It's not going to be a cost
$25 million.
Then
sure.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And if he was making $25 million and he was only pitching 5 innings, then yeah, absolutely deal him. And listen, that's the other thing is, don't get me wrong. I love Freddie. He's one of the best guys in the clubhouse to talk to. And he's the only person I know who's as happy, perpetually happy and smiley as myself.
Correct.
But listen, we talk about him like he's, Max Scherzer or Clemens going up. The guy needs 100 pitches to get through 4 2/3 innings.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not an ace. He's an incredibly good pitcher. But that inefficiency, I would say this all the time. Your ace isn't just your number one guy on the staff. He's the guy that when you put him out there, you're going to win. You're going to stop a losing streak. You're going to extend a winning streak. You're going to start a series off on the right note. And he's the guy that is going to give your bullpen the day of rest that they need. And you don't get that with him. He's shown flashes of it. But more often than not, it's 5 innings, 100 pitches. He'll have 1 or 2 innings where he loads up the bases and works out of it. Guys foul it off left and right. That inefficiency is the one thing that's holding him back from being a true ace, a true superstar pitcher.
So do you think teams are calling about McGill and Mears because they need relief help and they're thinking, well, McGill's awesome, Mears is awesome? Or do you think they're calling the Brewers because they're looking at the money after Brandon Woodruff accepted that offer and they're thinking, well, at some point the Brewers are going to deal because there's no way that they're going to open with, what is it, $135 million would be their opening payroll right now? Is it because they think the Brewers are going to want to shed some money, or are teams really that interested in guys like McGill and Mears?
I think it's a combination of both. Obviously they know the Brewers are going to try and save money where they can. And they also know that the Brewers are lousy with relievers and almost always have a surplus with it. The Brewers have Uribe sitting right behind McGill, ready to go and step in this kind of like never-ending revolving door of dominant closers. So I feel like the Brewers are kind of in a position of luxury there. It's kind of like we said when they traded Devin Williams, like they didn't have to, but they could, and not really miss a beat. I think they see themselves in the same position right now, so it never hurts to ask. And teams are always going to call the Brewers because they think that team is looking to shed money. And the Brewers are smart enough to know how to game the market and work the market to their advantage. If you can flip McGill for, 2 more pitchers that are pretty good, and let's face it, the Brewers could trade McGill for 2 guys that we've never heard of in Double-A that have absolutely atrocious ERAs, and within a year and a half, they'll be up here firing absolute rockets and putting up zeros. Like, if the Brewers trade for pitchers, I have 100% confidence in the world that those are going to work out.
Same. I loved the Priester trade when it happened. I never said a bad thing about it. Just one example.
No, not at all. No. Also, I just noticed the title that you gave me. I like that.
Crabby music fan.
Jaded Brewer scribe.
I'd say that you're jaded. You're a crabby Brewers. Have you listened to a lot of the Mavericks last 24, 48 hours?
Yeah, that was pretty much on all day yesterday. Raul Malo was like, we've talked about there was the 4 tenors back in the day. Raul Malo could have been the 5th. Like, Mavericks are just incredible. And like, it's weird hearing them referred to as country because they don't really fit the bill. Like, they cover so many different genres. Like, there's jazz in there, there's Tijuana in there, there's like polka in there, there's I love it. Like, it
very
was
Bakersfield, like in the same way that like I guess Buck Owens or Dwight Yoakam would be country, their country.
It was music. It featured horns, it featured strings, it featured drums, it featured everything. Like, and then you add his voice into it. I mean, his is a one-of-kind voice, and the music is just transcendent. Like, that was a tough day. Like, I know he'd been battling cancer for a while, and you'd hope that he was making the term. I'm bummed that I missed the last run through Wisconsin last year because Mavericks are like, as great as their music is, their live shows are incredible.
Nobody wanted to go with me. I wanted to go to the lacrosse center, him and Dwight Yoakam. Well, and what is it, Winchester 49? I'm sorry, it's a band you probably know well that I don't, but I just
49 Winchester. Yeah, very good.
As I was saying, yeah,
they're up on the wall here. So yeah.
What's the next concert you're going to? You got one on the ticket right now?
I am going to go see them Cooley Boys from your neck of the woods Saturday night at the Vivarium in Milwaukee. So.
Hell yeah. Well, I'll be there. You just let me know what time you can pick me up, and I will join you there. They are from my neck of the woods. We're very proud of them, Cooley Boys.
Incredible band. They are incredible musicians. One of my favorite acts, not just from Wisconsin, but overall. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing them. Been a couple years since I've seen them live.
Well, enjoy that show. It is nice to see you. I know that you will never tell me the same, but deep down, I know that you also sometimes think it.
You look so grown up with your glasses. I'm just impressed that your high school is letting you live stream these broadcasts now. Like, the teachers at, what is it, Lacrosse Aquinas, Lacrosse Central, wherever it is that you go, like, they are really letting you guys get out there and do your best. Now, I'll let you go. Don't forget to do your algebra and brush your teeth. Got to be ready for school tomorrow morning.
Have a good one. Appreciate it.
Bye, Grant.
Nice to see you. Yeah, Lacrosse Aquinas. I did go to Catholic school, just not that one, for the record. We'll take a break, 3 minutes. A couple baseball thoughts before we wrap up hour number 1. And at 5 o'clock, I'll be honest, I got a rant about Giannis. I just have some things that I need to get off my chest, so we'll get to that as well.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Fan favorite, all-time great Met is out the door. Joining Brandon Nimmo, Edwin Diaz is now Pete Alonso. I've said this in the past, and I still believe it, that David Stearns is smart, has a plan, and we will ultimately see what that plan becomes. But there is no doubt that he is putting extra pressure on himself right now to get it right and to get it right quickly with the departures of some big-time fan favorites. With the way things are going right now, it's hard to even envision what will happen next. Big moves expected to continue as the Mets reshape a roster after one of the most disappointing seasons in Mets history. We'll have much more throughout the day as news continues to break here on SNY.
That's too bad. Mets, David Stearns having a week. A correction, Andrew said Alonso was 40, and I'm like, there's no, he's 30 or 31. Just turned 31. So a little bit of a correction. Andrew misspoke there. And I'm like, wait, no way. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. Soul Surfer texts in, says, I'm actually here for the David Stearns bashing. Yeah, he did some good things for the Brewers. I think he did a lot of things that were not so great and was not held accountable for them. Or people said, well, but Mark is Mark's mean and cheap. Okay, yeah, Mark came down to David's office and made him trade Josh Hader. I love that we got so the first thing we talked about with Andrew. Well, here's the thing about the Josh Hader trade. Ken Rosenthal today, what he's hearing around MLB's winter meetings. In addition to closer Trevor McGill, right-handed reliever Nick Mears is another player generating trade interest for Milwaukee's bullpen. League sources said. Nick Mears, 29, is under club control for 2 more seasons. And Trade Rumors projects Mears to make $1.6 million in 63 appearances. Mears had blah, 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 chase rate ranked in the top 7% per Baseball Savant. Where are they getting that chase rate? Okay. Chase. He's getting 93% chase. Here's the thing, and here's why I would actually be okay if they traded Mears, even though they're only saving $1 million. He wasn't missing bats last year, which didn't prevent Pat Murphy from running him out there in fireman opportunities, which I think was maybe one of Pat Murphy's bigger blind spots last year, is Mears would be the mop-up guy. He'd come in with runners on base, which is typically a guy who misses bats. Nick Mears couldn't miss bats last year. His whiff rate was 49. It was, 49th, or his whiff percentage was 49%, which is just a little bit less than average. Not good, or 49th percentile, I should say. Sorry, my baseball brain isn't clicked on. It's December. He was 49th percentile in whiff percentage, which just isn't going to cut it. Like, I don't need guys in the bullpen who can't miss bats. I have no use for that. That does nothing for me because the Brewers can take any Tom, Dick, or Harry, as Andrew said, out of anybody's double-A team and have them throwing gas, and they can come in and miss bats. So if they trade Nick Mears and they're able to get some scratch back for him, great. McGill, for different reasons, I just don't know that I trust the elbow. He had a couple of injuries towards the end of the year. But then again, look, these are not high leverage type of moves. Mears is going to make like $1.5 million. McGill probably makes 6 or 7 tops. So if you keep them and they stink, it's not going to sink your team, but opportunities to maybe add some value. I want to rant about Giannis next. Don't go anywhere.
This is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update
Well, the Packers returned to the field today for practice. Got ready for a huge matchup on Sunday at Denver. Broncos come in 11-2, winners of 10 straight. Green Bay has won 4 straight, including 3 over division rivals. They're actually 2.5-point favorites on the road, and they could be getting some more help along the defensive line as Lucas Van Ness hit the practice field after missing the last 2 games with a foot injury that has bugged him since the middle of October and caused him to miss more time. Again, it'll be the Packers and Broncos on Sunday, kick slated for 3:25. Turning to the Badgers, they will have a different offensive line coach for the 5th time in the last 6 seasons. That's after Luke Fickell fired A.J. Blazek following 2 years. They actually already have his replacement and former Arkansas offensive line coach Eric Mateos. He worked with Wisconsin offensive coordinator Jeff Grimes at Baylor and BYU. Arkansas was one of the top rushing offenses in the country this past season. Meanwhile, 6 Badgers have hit the transfer portal already, including former starting linebacker Tackett Curtis. Transfer portal doesn't officially open until January 2nd.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
All business owners want the same thing, to make their business succeed. At Rural Mutual, they help that happen. As the 3rd largest writer of commercial business in Wisconsin, they take the time to learn your business so they can properly protect you. Call your local agent today or visit ruralmutual.com.
Rural Mutual Insurance, keeping Wisconsin strong.
Well, the Badgers are in Nebraska. It's where they're going to take on the unbeaten Cornhuskers tonight. Nebraska actually ranked number 23 in the country. First time they've been ranked since 2018. Wisconsin comes in winners of 2 straight, including a blowout of Marquette this past weekend. Tip is set for 8. And the Bucks are going to be back in action tomorrow when they face off against the Celtics at Fiserv Forum. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil, Print.
They're just not really a weak link out there. You look at their front, their backers, their back end. They've got players across the board, how hard they play, how hard they finish and tackle, and it's going to be a great test for us.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
Thank you, Zach. Great 2-minute update. I just saw Zach retweet something that I have to share. I want to rant about Giannis here in a minute. I'm going to take, never mind. Caller dropped off. So I said I was going to take a call before getting my Giannis rant, but now I don't have to. Zach retweeted a tweet from Braden Locke. This prick. He knows exactly what he's doing. The Notes app screenshot says, Arizona has felt like home to me since the day I walked in the building. And when was that? 2024? This past year has been one of the most rewarding years of my football journey, filled with experiences and relationships that will stay with me long after my time here. I'm so grateful for my coaches and teammates that have believed in me, pushed me, and made this experience special for me in ways that go far beyond football. Well, they must, because the football sucks. I'm so proud to be a part of this team, and I'll never forget the adversity that we overcame together as a team. Moving forward into next season, I will be entering my name in the transfer portal. Signed, Braden Locke. Zach knows what he's doing retweeting that. He's just throwing red meat to his followers on Badgers Twitter, but that's funny. I would do the same if I were him. A big fan. Also, a little piece of breaking news. Packers-Ravens has been moved to Saturday night, which is pretty awesome if you're going to that game. That rules if you're going to that game. I talked with some friends a couple months ago about maybe going, and I'm like, man, they could maybe move that to Saturday night. Maybe had they already, maybe had we known that would be a Saturday night game, maybe I would have got tickets. Still could. I gotta drive all the way up to Green Bay. Then it's like the whole weekend. Whatever. I want to talk about Giannis a little bit. May I? Would anyone tolerate a couple of minutes on what's going on with Giannis? So we did a half hour on this last week. I gave you 15 minutes of my thoughts, and then we talked with Justin Garcia as well. Bucks fans are not having a good time. The team's not any good right now. Set that to the side. Bucks fans are not having a good time right now because we are getting beaked by national insiders on Twitter and on TV every single day saying Giannis is having discussions. Giannis is unsure. Giannis doesn't really know. He's weighing his options. He's having conversations with his agent about what's best for him and what's best for his future. And Bucks fans, we look at all of this and we roll our eyes and we don't want to engage with it because we've been hearing the same stuff for years. And nothing ever changes. There's no new reporting or new material. Now, we've gotten some slightly new things over the last week or two, but for the most part, it's the same song, a slightly different verse, but not that slightly different. A lot of the lyrics are repeating. So we're like, you guys, I understand he wants to win. I understand he's having conversations. Like, if he requests a trade, can you let us know? Otherwise, can you leave me alone? And I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable. I also pointed out last week that Bucks fans, we need to realize that it's coming from somewhere, and that if Giannis was fully and totally committed to the Bucks 100%, this stuff could stop so easily with just a little press conference, a little tweet, or put messaging out through one of your errand boys. Put it out through Chris Haynes. He'll read it word for word like Ron Burgundy on that weird late night NBA TV show that looks like it should be hosted by Andy Cohen. Just like put a message out, man. And he hasn't, because he's not sure. So I want to play for you 2 bits of sound. I have Jake Fisher, who I think is with Yahoo. I'll double check that when the sound is playing in case you want to track down his work. And I have a piece of sound. Speak of the devil, Chris Haynes. This is on The Association last night on NBA TV. We'll start with Chris Haynes.
So with rumors going on, rumors swirling rampant right now on Giannis Antetokounmpo and his future, sources have relayed to me that Giannis Antetokounmpo addressed some of his teammates recently to stress the importance of focusing on basketball and not to allow outside distractions to interfere with the process at hand. And, I was told that his point was that he's here at the time being wanting to get better, wanting to make sure he gets his game back on point, make sure he gets back from this injury. But he understood and he relayed the message that he can't control what goes on or what even happens to him. So obviously things are getting loud to a certain point where he felt like he had to address some of his teammates. So we shall see what happens from here on out.
You know why things are getting loud is because you're making noise about your displeasure with the Bucks. And to say, hey, man, tune out that inside noise or outside noise. We have no control over that. You literally control it. Giannis, you actually do control it. Like it's the hot dog meme from I Think You Should Leave.
That he's here at the time being wanting to get better, wanting to make sure he gets his game back on point, make sure he gets back from this injury. But he understood and he relayed the message that he can't control what goes on or what even happens to him.
BS. You control it all. You control it all. It's not to say that reporters they're always you can't control what Stephen A. Smith says. You can control what Shams Charania reports with your agent's name on it. The agent's name doesn't go on the tweet unless it's pretty darn solid and official. The agent's name doesn't go on it unless it's 1 inch shy of a legitimate official trade request. So for Giannis to come into the team and be like, hey guys, let's focus on basketball. That outside noise is out of our control. Just ignore it. I'd be like, screw you, dude. First of all, you're hurt again. And all of this noise is coming from you and your agent. The name of the agent is on the report. And you want to tell me I don't know where this is coming from. This is out of my control. Dude. No, it's not. Here's Jake Fisher. He's his own thing now. He's works with Mark Stein and he's got a Substack. I think he's been with Yahoo in the past. That's why I checked. He does some stuff for Bleacher Report as well, but this is Jake Fisher.
I'd say overall, from my conversations with people around the league, with people around Milwaukee, with people around the Antetokounmpo brothers, that the writing is on the wall, and we are in this position right now because Antetokounmpo's agent, Alex Saratzis, told the Bucks this past summer that they were going to reevaluate things about 20 games into the year, and that's where we're at. And the Bucks are looking up at the majority of the Eastern Conference playoff picture. They have been porous, to say the least, when Antetokounmpo has been out this season. And he is, of course, still on the sidelines right now, nursing a calf strain where we don't know when Giannis will be back on the floor. And obviously that is going to do no service for the Bucks in their effort to win more games and to continue to shape into a legitimate championship contender in the Eastern Conference.
Okay, so both of these sound bites are hinting at something different. Chris Haynes reporting on this team meeting that took place with Giannis, where he said, hey guys, tune out the outside noise. Let's just play basketball. I can't control it. BS. So to me, this is a bad look for Giannis. This report from Jake Fisher saying, again, agent mentioned, which makes this more legit. Not that anything that Shams or any of these guys said, and not to say that you can discount it if the agent's name isn't on it, but when the agent's name is on it, it's even stronger. Like that's even more official. When he says that Alex Saratzis and Giannis's representation, which is Octagon, he's rep by Octagon, said, we will reevaluate after 20 games of this season. I don't know whose idea that was, but it was a stupid one. And if that was Giannis's, like, hey, I'll start the season here, but after 20 games, like, I'll know whether I want to stay. His agent and the Bucks should have said, Giannis, we're not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense for you or for the Bucks. That's not going to net the best result for everyone involved, most notably you. Because what could happen is you end up not wanting to be here, the Bucks not wanting to trade you, the team isn't competitive, so the Bucks aren't going to push you to play. You're going to miss a lot of this year. It's going to be a lost year for everybody. So I don't know whose idea that was. I would guess that it's Octagon. I would guess that is his representation. It's like, all right, we'll stay, but after 20 games, we're going to reevaluate, which is so stupid, by the way. Like, if you're close enough to requesting a trade to the point where you wanted to be connected with the Knicks this summer, which means like, hey, I'm not sure what I want to do with this relationship. I'm going to go spend the weekend at my mother's. That's what that was. Like, you're basically breaking up, chances are. And then to say, okay, let's try 20 games. That is remarkably stupid. So again, to continue this relationship analogy, if Giannis requests a trade now, that's like breaking up with someone a week after you just brought them home for the holidays to spend, a week with your family. Like, if you thought that breaking up was an option, you got to do that before, like, the timing matters here. You know what I mean? Well, timing has no bearing on matters of the heart. Yeah, but we're adults here. Like, figure it out, okay? Like, if you're going to break up with your significant other, don't do it the hour you get back from spending Christmas with your family. That's not how that's done. So again, I don't know if this is Giannis's doing or if it's his representation's doing. It's a little ridiculous, and the Bucks should be pissed. And I would imagine that the Bucks are, maybe not for the first time, but for, I bet this has been rare in his time in Milwaukee because he's been everything in the franchise. I bet the Bucks organization is like, okay, like, what are we even doing here anymore? Like, if this is how this is going to go, like, yeah, let's hear some offers. At this moment in time, I really like Giannis, and I want him to stay. And if he requests a trade tomorrow, I really won't be all that mad. I'll say, you know what, Giannis? You want a title? A lot of good seasons here, MVPs. Probably you'll be the best Bucks basketball era of my lifetime. Thanks, man. Like, good luck in your next stop. If he drags this out much longer, and by much longer, I mean like into January. If we get into January, late January, and we're still getting reports like this, well, Giannis met with his teammates and said they need to tune out the noise. This is going to turn on, like, this is going to go full Favre. And when he eventually does request a trade, people aren't going to be nice to him about it. I put together I made a little graphic. If you're watching on the live stream, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, the Wisco Sports Zone app, which is what I recommend. A little bit of an instrument to measure the situation where we are here. I call it the Brett Barometer, okay? And you never want to go full Favre. You never want to end up all the way where Favre was, to the point where, like, nobody's happy. Favre's pissed, the Packers are pissed, fans are pissed. You don't want it to get there. So if we're going to have a split here, let's get on with that. In fact, it should have been done this offseason. The fact that we're going to reevaluate after 20 games is ridiculous. But I feel like we have surpassed normal superstar behavior. I think we've surpassed like early onset diva. It's almost to the point where it's untenable. And then when it gets to the point that it's untenable, people start saying the things that they regret, and then we've gone full Favre. And we can't end up there with Giannis. Well, he can. I guess he can do what he wants, but it's not going to end well for him if he doesn't want to be booed when he gets back to Milwaukee. If he wants to be remembered the way that he should be remembered, like, he needs to piss or get off the pot. He should have pissed or get off the pot in July. But again, either he had this fracocta idea or his representation did to give it a 20-game trial run. So stupid. It's gonna net the worst result for everyone involved. All right, some of your calls here. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, Mississippi Drew. How's it going?
Great, Mississippi Drew. To what do I owe this pleasure?
Oh, unfortunately, you kind of took the angle at the very end of your speech that I was going to pull. Like, I think it could have a lot to do with he's fed up with it and doesn't want to pay attention to it. Probably didn't pay attention to it much ever anyway.
He can stop it.
Like,
that's my point. Like, he can stop it. I don't want to hear him complain about it.
If he knows it's going on. Like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, I think he's probably so hands off with it. And I think the people around him might, have their own motives and their own feelings about what he should do with his life. And I think some of it might be that. So you can blame him for the kind of like apathy of not, monitoring his image more or something like that. But, I honestly don't know how much he really knows about I think he's sick of it. You know what I mean? So I think he's the type of guy who, when he gets sick of something, he might just stop paying attention to it and be like, look, I'm good.
Human reaction
around me handle it.
Human reaction, that's fine, but you got to be a big boy. Like, this is your choice. This is your
Right.
future. You can't be Michael Scott hiding in your office when you know you need to make a tough decision. Like, I understand that on a very human level, but for the role that he plays in his organization in the NBA, he can't. It can't be this way.
Yeah. Actually, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
Grow up, man.
All right.
I appreciate it, Mississippi Drew. We'll talk soon, I'm sure.
Yep.
I just got to get to a couple other calls here. All right, 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, Tony from Texas here. How's it going?
It's going excellent. How are you?
Good. So, hey, 2008 Favre, that summer, that was wild. You got like Chris Mortensen and Peter King going into Mississippi. You got airplanes going over the Favre compound in Mississippi. Then he comes in on a helicopter. Yeah, that was awesome times. But, back to Giannis. Remember Kobe flirted with going to the Clippers, and then Jerry West talked him out of it. And it's almost, okay, Milwaukee's not LA, but, Milwaukee's got some appeal to it, I think, for Giannis's lifestyle.
Should.
And I don't think the guy wants to leave. He just wants to be part of a winner. But look what happened after that meeting that Kobe had with Jerry West. Eventually, the Lakers did get better. They got Pau Gasol, a couple other pieces, and they won 2 titles, if I'm not mistaken. So if I'm honest, either, hey, you want to go. You want to start second part of your life, go ahead, move on. If not, you want to stay. I think the Bucks could rebuild and eventually get back to where they need to be in the next 4 years. But be here or don't be here,
Yeah. Well, and this should have been done in the summer, Tony. It should have been done in the summer.
Yeah.
It is a ridiculous idea to let the Bucks build and shape their team. And I appreciate it, Tony. I got to run. It is ridiculous to let the Bucks shape their team and make decisions this offseason and say, well, we'll see how it looks after 20 games. Are you insane? So I don't know whose thought process, whose strategy that was. But if that's from his agent, he's been getting some bad advice. And his agent's got to know, okay, Giannis, I know you don't want to deal with this. Do you want to be here or not? Because we're not checking back in December. That cannot be how this works. Because that's not going to get you to the place you want to go to. It's not going to end well for the Bucks. And you know who gets caught in the crossfire of all this is the fans who are going to get fed up with this, and now they're not going to like you. So everyone's going to lose. Let's take 2 more calls here. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, how we doing?
Excellent,
Happy
Vagabond.
Wednesday.
How about you?
Doing great. Hey, I shared a parable back in July, I think it was, when my dad, for those of us lucky enough where you can still just dial up dad when you have that big question, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back in college, I had this car that I absolutely loved in high school. It was a bright red Volkswagen Beetle, 6-speed sport turbo engine. Wouldn't take me as a Beetle guy, maybe, but I was convinced the first time I ever got that baby in the first gear and put the hammer down. Love a turbo, bright red for Wisconsin, of course. And I was halfway through college and I said, Dad, this car is getting expensive, man. I think the timing belt's about to go. And he goes, you know what, son? This is true for cars. This is true for pretty much everything in life.
I thought you were going to say
the
women.
moment you start to... No. We're going to leave Sharon Moore out of this today.
Yeah.
True for everything in life that as soon as you start to get that inkling in the bottom of your belly, right, that whatever is ahead is not going to be worth the fight, right? You just got to figure out how to cut clean and go. So posted on Facebook Marketplace, sold it, bought a Honda CRV, haven't looked back since. But I shared that in July saying, hey guys, this Bucks team, we've put everything into it, right? The GM's made all the moves. We tried everything with this Giannis era. And, for one reason or another, a lot of injuries, right? It hasn't worked out. I think we should probably look at trading him this year. Oh, you're an idiot. Wow, hot take. You hate this. Wow, why would you do this? Never wrong, just early. And here we are having the same conversation. So I hope Bucks fans, the last 6 months have been worth it for you. I know a lot of you are now coming to the realization that, yes, when you have an aging superstar, whether it's Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, David Bakhtiari, we kind of went through it with all of them. Giannis Antetokounmpo, right? Your guest on the Brewers was a great kind of example of how the Brewers avoid this by just not doing long contracts ever.
Yeah.
Right. But long contracts, aging superstars, especially in sports, we want nostalgia. We want it to start and end with one team. More often than not, it's better for both parties to not do it. I hope we trade them. I hope we trade them, right? Because otherwise we're looking at what for the next 5 years exactly? I guess that's my question.
Well, and that's a great, and Giannis is probably feeling the same way. I don't know that I want him traded. I want him here as long as possible. But if he keeps behaving like this, I'm going to want him traded too. I might want him traded today. I'm getting pretty close. And it's because I don't want to listen to this crap anymore. And I don't want to hear his camp leaking stuff out through all these insiders only to then hear, well, I don't know. I can't control this outside noise. Dude, stop. Grow. Maybe that's part of the issue. You just need to grow up a little bit. And if you want to play in small market Milwaukee and just be the hero and compete statistically for MVPs and you maybe have a nice run at some point, you can do that thing. I won't judge you. But if you truly, I want to compete for championships and this isn't the best spot for me, then do it. Because you kind of have a pass with most of the fans. It's not like Kevin Durant leaving OKC where he's going to get tomatoes thrown at him. You could leave. He could have left this offseason. People would have been like, what a run. But if you go about it like this, it's not going that way. So we got to take a break because Jesse Temple's coming up at 5:35. If you're on hold, I promise I'll get to you right after this break. Final thoughts on Giannis and anything else going on before we talk Badgers with Jesse.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
So with rumors going on, rumors swirling rampant right now on Giannis Antetokounmpo and his future. Sources have relayed to me that Giannis Antetokounmpo addressed some of his teammates recently to stress the importance of focusing on basketball and not to allow outside distractions to interfere with the process at hand. And, I was told that his point was that he's here at the time being wanting to get better, wanting to make sure he gets his game back on point, make sure he gets back from this injury. But he understood and he relayed the message that he can't control what goes on or what even happens to him. So obviously things are getting loud to a certain point where he felt like he had to address some of his teammates. So we shall see what happens from here on out.
Guys, tune out the outside noise
that I am creating.
I don't have any control over it. Okay, dude, sure, yeah. I love Giannis. Bro needs to decide, like now, like by the end of this week, what we're doing here. This is kind of embarrassing, and the fans are going to turn. I give this till mid-January, late January, and fans will be in full Favre mode. Get this guy out of here. I can't do it anymore. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this? Thank you for waiting.
It's John in Monona.
Hey, John, what's going on?
Well, I think you're being a little hard on Giannis, Grant. Because I think the organization, the Bucks, have done everything that they could have to try and build every single year to try and win a championship. And I think John Horst is just out of bullets at this point.
Oh, yeah. I don't fault the Bucks for the spot that they're in. I'm with you. I think the Bucks have done absolutely everything in their power. So I'm not kicking and screaming today about how the Bucks didn't do enough, and I'm not kicking and screaming for Giannis feeling like maybe this isn't the best place for him to win anymore. I need him to decide not 2 months into a brand new season. I guess that's my point, John. He could have requested a trade in July, and we'd have said, "Hey, man, like what a run." I'm not mad at Giannis for maybe thinking he wants to leave. I'm getting annoyed that he can't decide.
Well, sure, but I don't think in his mind, I don't think he wants to leave. He's got a great life there, right?
Sure.
And so what does it mean? Like he'll have to go start a whole new life and put his kids in new schools in like New York or Miami or this or that. Like he didn't want to do that, but it's coming to a point where it's like, this is the only thing that they can do. They have to maximize the return for Giannis so that the Bucks don't go back into Siberia for the next 20 years, right? Because we have zero picks, and we've been, I think, maybe you would know, paying the luxury tax for how many years now?
I don't know if their second apron, I know they got under it when they traded Chris. I don't know if they went back over it after stretching Dame. And look, if he wants to stay, John, then he can stay. Then come out and say, hey, guys, I'm in Milwaukee this year. I love it here. I want to keep my family here. I love this organization. I love Miles Turner. And I'm hurt right now, but we're going to get this thing right. You saw earlier this year how good it looked when we were all out there. Like, this is going to be a great year. He could come out and say that, and this stuff stops. Like, Shams is not making this stuff up every day. Go ahead, John. Yeah.
Right. I guess my point is that the Milwaukee Bucks cannot continue unless they get a huge haul for Giannis on the way out.
Okay. So you're saying the Bucks should deal him. That's what's best for the Bucks?
I mean, they have to. They have to get like some sort of assets back to start building for post Giannis.
Sure. Yeah. So, and look, very analytical fans, John, I appreciate it, feel that way. And I don't think you're wrong to say, well, you're not going to win again with Giannis, probably. And the only way to not be in total Siberia after Giannis is to trade him now. Because Giannis hasn't officially requested a trade, because it seems to me that he's too chicken-ass to do so, if that's really what he wants. We haven't really had any conversations about what he's worth. If you think they can get back a future star for him, like the Thunder got with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, or like let's just say they trade him to the Spurs and they get, is it Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper, whichever one's there, I don't remember. And you think like that could be the next guy. Okay, sure. More likely, you're probably going to get like a bunch of picks and some young players, like what the Lakers got for, or like what the Pelicans got for Anthony Davis, where it's like you can have Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball in picks. And Brandon Ingram is mostly hurt all the time, and Lonzo Ball's hurt all the time. And when they play together, sometimes they were good, and the picks never really amounted to anything. Like that's probably what you're going to get. So to me, I don't need to rush Giannis out the door for the sake of like this imaginary panacea on the other side, because I don't think it exists. I think you're just going to suck when Giannis leaves no matter what you do. You don't have to agree. That's fine. I'm content keeping Giannis for as long as he wants to be here, but not if he's going to piss and moan the entire time. Then ask to leave. They will oblige you. Preferably not in December. That doesn't make much sense. Again, I think he's getting bad advice probably from, he's rep by Octagon. Like, I don't know what they, so we'll give it 20 games, Giannis. What? That's stupid to me. That's beyond stupid to me. Let's take a break. We'll come back. Natural lull in the show. Jesse Temple will join us next to talk Badgers. The transfer portal is not open, but players are saying, I will be entering the transfer portal. So we'll talk about that. Some players in this recruiting class, new O-line coach, all of that. Discuss next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Jesse.
Jesse. Hey, Jesse.
Jesse. Jesse.
Jesse. Jesse.
Jesse.
Jesse.
Jesse. Jesse. Jesse.
Jesse. Jesse. Jesse.
Jesse. Jesse.
Jesse.
Jesse.
Jesse.
Jesse. Jesse.
Jesse.
Jesse.
Jesse Temple, Badger Connect, joining us in a moment. Quick update on the text line, 608-321-1670. Get rid of him. Bucks have bent over backwards for him, paying two of his brothers for nothing. We as fans are sick of him. I think the majority of fans are not sick of him, but this text does, I think, represent a growing sentiment. And this is why I'm just sounding the alarm bells here. Like, Giannis, if you're going to ask for a trade, I got no problem with it. I think a majority of Bucks fans wouldn't have a problem with it, wouldn't hold it against you. But if you drag it out like this, man, they're going to have a problem with it when it eventually happens, because you're going to, like Favre did, kick them around, keep us waiting, make us wonder. We're going to have to deal with reports every day. We're the ones who suffer. We're the ones dealing with this on the front lines, not you. In fact, you could just go in the locker room. Guys, just tune out the outside noise. No one can control it. All right, brother. Whatever you say. Jesse Temple, as I was saying, Badger Connect. Let's chat about the latest going on with Wisconsin football and a little basketball as well. Jesse Temple is here, Badger Connect. And, of course, you hear him on the camp with Zach. This is I would imagine a nerve-wracking time of the year to podcast because, Jesse, as soon as you finish a podcast, I imagine that another piece of news breaks, and I believe that happened to you and Zach earlier today because we got some coaching news. But before we get to that, let's talk about some of the players who have departed. Trechka Kahuna, Cade Yakimelli, what other notable names have struck you, and what other notable names have departed the program that Badgers fans should be concerned with or should be talking about?
Well, those are the most notable names to date. Obviously, a lot of the guys who left were not key contributors. They lost two wide receivers, Ty and Barry Johnson, who we didn't see play, Joseph Griffin Jr., who originally came from Boston College, but just wasn't a part of the rotation, safety Remington Moss, punter Atticus Bertram, who was a starter, but then ended up kind of losing his starting role to Sean West, and they feel good about that. So what I would say is, yes, it is a delicate time to be podcasting. We have an immaculate track record of recording a show only for something crazy to break immediately after, but there are going to be more players that will be leaving because this is a time when obviously the coaching staff is meeting with guys to try and retain them and discuss what the future could be. And these players, obviously, some of them have been thinking about this for a while.
So you're tapped and you're talking with all these people. So obviously you can't share everything with us, but is there a player or two or anybody who you feel like might be on the fence the Badgers fans should be paying attention to? Anybody that we're unsure of that would be a huge loss or a huge player to retain one way or another?
Well, I think that there are a lot of positions that are pretty important for Wisconsin to try and retain. You can just look at the guys who had an impact on the field, both offensively and defensively. I sort of am in wait and see mode. If they're going to end up in the portal, we'll know in the next week or two. Now, the portal doesn't open until January 2nd, but because of the new structure for when that window happens, you have the entire month of December, if you're a team that's not participating in a bowl, to have these conversations and get your name out there. So I'm kind of like everybody I think I'm not sure about until we either see they're in the portal or see that maybe they've decided to come back.
So I listened to Colton, who was on with Zach on the morning show the other day, and Zach said if you could, protect or you could guarantee one player is back. And Colton, he didn't really have a good answer. It's a tough question to answer, but he mentioned Kevin Haywood, especially now with the news that they're changing O-line coaches. Is that a position group that you would focus on or really pay attention to? Maybe some some important retentions or guys who could leave?
Very much so. I
Okay.
think getting guys back like Kevin Haywood, who was in position to start this year before he tore his ACL in spring ball, Emerson Mandel, Joe Brunner, I think certainly left the door open for the possibility that he can come back. That right there would give you 3 guys that you feel pretty darn good about. So offensive line, because right now they need to add a few bodies on the O-line. Luke Fickell talked about how important it was to invest in that position. Obviously, linebacker, too. Just look how much talent they have at the linebacker spot. When you have 2 freshmen come in and see the job that they did, and Christian Allegro, like, there is so much talent there that there are obviously several positions Wisconsin feels it's important to figure out what they need to do.
Well, and if they want to get back to playing Wisconsin football, which Fickell has signaled, and the Jeff Grimes hire was probably the first step in the right direction, the O-line's really important. They're moving on from A.J. Blazek, and as you shared on Twitter earlier today, this is now going to be their 3rd different offensive line coach under Fickell, their 5th since 2021. What are they looking for, or what wasn't A.J. Blazek doing that they're looking to find in this next guy, whose name I don't have in front of me, but tell us about him.
Well, ultimately, it's a results-oriented business. I like A.J. Blazek. I think he brought a lot of positive energy. Certainly the first year he was here, he was able to have a really solid recruiting class. And then this year it was a struggle because when the offense stinks, you have players questioning what they should be doing. Wisconsin had 2 commits on the O-line and then lost both of them, ultimately ended up getting a kid who was originally committed to Boston College, who's out of Massachusetts and is a 4-star prospect. But I think it's important to note also that Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator, I don't know that he got to pick what his staff was going to look like here this season.
Sure.
And so now there's an opportunity to reunite with somebody who's been the Baylor offensive line coach, and obviously Grimes 2 stops ago, before he was at Kansas, was at Baylor, and they had some success there. And I think that stuff matters. Now, it doesn't always work out because the last time Luke Fickell brought in an offensive coordinator in so Longo, he brought his offensive line coach, Jack McNeil Jr. from North Carolina. So all of these moves come with, I think, a certain layer of skepticism just because you have to see the results on the field. Well, we knew that Luke needed to make some changes staff-wise, and this is kind of the first domino to fall.
When you talk to people around college football or you talk to recruits and the families, does the prestige of Wisconsin as an O-line development school, does that still exist, or has that been lost in the last couple of seasons from what you've heard?
It's tough because if you're recruiting high school players, how far back does their memory go?
Yeah.
Well, no one's looking at the glory days when Barry Alvarez was there, or frankly, even when Paul Chryst was there, because these dudes were 8th graders then. So there's that. Maybe transfer portal guys might have some familiarity with it, but the further you get away from that success, I think the harder it is to sell. Just like Luke Fickell coming to Wisconsin, it was, wow, look what he did at Cincinnati, and all of those things are still true, but now that happened 3+ years ago. So I think they still try to sell that, but they haven't been that for so long. Just look at the numbers offensively, and even the rushing offense, which, yes, you need a really good running back, but the offensive line helps that. Every year since 2019, when they had Jonathan Taylor, hasn't been very good. I think one year was 2021. But other than that, like, they've been at 62nd a couple of times. They've been in the 40s. This year, they're near the bottom nationally in the 116th or something like that. So I think that's harder to sell when you don't have the proof on the field.
So we talked about players that they missed out on, players that have left. Some of the recruits that have entered the program, we can talk about quarterback Ryan Hopkins. I know in your Badger Bite, you sat down with Pat Lambert. You watched some film on some of these recruits. So what are some of the names? I know the negativity probably was leading, going back to last week, the players they missed out on. But what about the players who've come in and you've watched a little film on some of these guys?
Yeah, it's a really cool Badger Bites that we have this week. We looked at 6 players from this 2026 recruiting class, which right now has 13 signees, 3 on offense, 3 on defense. So offensively, we looked at Ryan Hopkins, as you mentioned, Quantavious Wiggins, who's the running back that they ended up signing, and then Keith, who's the wide receiver they got late in the cycle. Defensively, defensive lineman DJ Ba, outside linebacker Yaya God, and then cornerback Donovan Dunmore. Like, I know that we've hammered this staff for not signing a better recruiting class, or at least a more highly rated class, and losing some 4-star guys. They still have 13 players, and I don't want to act like these guys aren't good. There is a lot of talent there, but they need to show that they can play early, because that's something Luke Fickell talked about. You come here, and now in the transfer portal era, if you're not making progress within 6 months, you might be more apt to leave, and the staff might be more apt to look at somebody else too.
Do you think their strategy of treating high school players as lottery tickets, we want to invest lesser and be less beholden to them, take more of the sure thing in the transfer portal? Do you think that's a sound strategy and a smart turn for this program that's been more recruiting heavy the last few years? Or do you think it's a reaction to recruiting poorly, so now we're doing what we have to do?
I think it's all of it. Obviously, some of this is strategic now. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like Wisconsin was trying to have a 13-player recruiting class. Initially, it was always going to be a smaller number, but that number was like 18, and that clearly didn't work out. I'd also say that this staff with Luke Fickell, they are in win-now mode. I know you can say that about most coaches, but when he got here in year one, you had some runway. Like, oh, we're going to build this thing. We're going to get our guys. Now you're going into year 4. You're under 500 as a coach. You're 10-17 in Big Ten play, and if you don't win this year, you're not going to get a year 5. So you need talent that can help you right now. And the truth is, there are not that many true freshmen that can do that for you. Mason Posa is an outlier. Cooper Catalano is an outlier. So you need guys who can get you wins immediately. And yeah, to some degree, you are sacrificing high school recruiting, but so is everybody else.
Well, it's a tightrope, right? You want to invest in the Posas and the Catalanos and make sure you have resources and you have those guys without also investing in a bunch of other guys who might never play for you, right? So it's the lottery ticket analogy is not a bad one. You want to pick your spots. Again, easier to say when your recruiting class is small, but I think there's truth to both of those schools of thought. A quick Badger basketball thought before I let you go, Jesse. They play at Nebraska. It's a really tough place to win. They've always struggled there. They've blown some big leads. What have you seen from Blackwell, Boyd, some of the other players that you've covered and written about? Just give me the latest on where you stand with the Badgers basketball team.
Well, I covered the Marquette game on Saturday. Couldn't be more impressed by what I saw. Now, Marquette's not very good. They were 5-5 after that loss, but Wisconsin scored 96 points, the most points they've ever scored against Marquette. John Blackwell drops 30 for the third time this season. And even though Nick Boyd didn't have a great game, overall, he's averaging 20.2 points per game, and Blackwell's averaging 21. And there's never been a duo at Wisconsin that's averaged 20 points a game for an entire season. I know it's been apples to oranges comparison because their offense is so much different from what it used to be. But I think the question is, what happens when they get in a tough environment like what Nebraska's going to be like, and it's a close game? They haven't really played many close games. Do they have the toughness? The two losses sort of stick out because BYU is just a fantastic team.
Yep.
They won on a buzzer beater against Clemson last night, and the TCU game as well. But I just like so much about what they're doing and the way they've evolved. And Andrew Bode's coming off a career high, and Alexis Bielowski and Nolan Winter got double-doubles. So I think that this is going to be one of the more entertaining Badgers teams we've seen.
It's a different type of basketball, right? A lot of teams can score and run and get out and build a lead and get into cruise control when the game really slows down and it's possession, back and forth, timeout, free throws. We haven't really seen that from them this year, so maybe we see it tonight. Nebraska will certainly be a test. Jesse, appreciate you. We will follow your work at Badger Connect and listen to you and Zach on the camp. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, Grant. Talk soon.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
I'd say overall, from my conversations with people around the league, with people around Milwaukee, with people around the Antetokounmpo brothers, that the writing is on the wall, and we are in this position right now because Antetokounmpo's agent, Alex Saratzis, told the Bucks this past summer that they were going to reevaluate things about 20 games into the year, and that's where we're at. And the Bucks are looking up at the majority of the Eastern Conference playoff picture. They have been porous, to say the least, when Antetokounmpo has been out this season, and he is, of course, still on the sidelines right now, nursing a calf strain, where we don't know when Giannis will be back on the floor, and obviously that is going to do no service for the Bucks in their effort to win more games and to continue to shape into a legitimate championship contender in the Eastern Conference.
Jake Fisher, one more time. Thanks to Jesse Temple, by the way. I don't mean to just skip past that. Really good Badger stuff from Jesse, and if you missed that, get it in the podcast. We talked a lot of Packers. Talked some baseball in the first hour, too, with Andrew Wagner. That was fun. We'll get hot and heavy back into the Packers tomorrow night. We'll get Mike Clemens, but hitting some other stories tonight. We've been talking a little bit about Giannis. I realize that the Bucks are not the big meal ticket, on Wisconsin Sports Talk Radio. I realize that most of you would rather talk about the Packers or the Brewers or the Badgers. I get that. The reason that I wanted to talk about Giannis tonight, it's more than a Buck story. It's bigger than that. It's a superstar that's so important to his market and to his state and to his fan base that can't decide whether or not he wants to stay or go. And the human implications of that, forget the basketball implications. Those are complicated. If the Bucks don't know whether or not Giannis is bought in for the next month or the next year, that's going to impact their decision-making, and that can be a whole hornet's nest. But the human implications, the implications among the fans in Wisconsin and how they view Giannis, my point is he could have requested a trade in July, and the vast majority of Bucks fans would be like, Giannis, you want us a title? What a run, man. Thanks. Probably makes sense. The Bucks are kind of out of ammo. Good luck. And you might be in your car. Well, not me. I won't like him anymore. That's why I said majority. I always tweet stuff like this. Then people get in my replies and they're like, I won't like him anymore. That's why That's why I said a lot of Bucks fans would be fine with it. A majority, not all. God, that gets up my ass. Anyways, set that aside. Most Bucks fans would have been fine with it in July. If this keeps going, where we have to hear another new report every week that's like back corner, through sources, through people close to the situation, Giannis is in conversations, Giannis isn't sure. Basically, all of these insiders saying everything they possibly can that's sourced other than Giannis wants to leave, because clearly they haven't gotten the go-ahead. But these reports are not made up. They're not just invented. They're obnoxious, and they've been going on for a long time, but that doesn't mean they're made up, especially when an agent's name is attached. When Shams attaches the name, Alex Saratzis, or Jake Fisher, explicitly citing Giannis's representation and Alex Saratzis and Octagon, who's the agency that represents him. That makes it even more official. The longer this crap goes on, like, Bucks fans aren't going to be okay with it when it eventually happens. Because it'll be the full Favre. We will be beaten into submission and so exhausted by the willy-wonny, wishy-washy that we're just going to be over it. And when he finally does leave, we're not going to like him anymore. And I got a tweet over the break from Hugh Jass. At Jass, first name Hugh. That's a good Twitter name. said, we just did this with Aaron. Now, Hugh, I'm not picking on you, but I feel the need to remind you guys of this. I brought this up before. Aaron didn't do this. Favre did. Aaron did not do this. There was one offseason where the Bucs lost to Tampa, which would have been the year after they drafted Jordan Love, where Aaron Rodgers said at his postgame press conference, and I remember Jason Wilde tweeting about it, saying, yeah, I might not be back next year, which made sense considering they just lost in the NFC Championship game. And a year ago, they had just drafted his replacement. Rodgers was like, I don't know if I'll be back. And then in the offseason, he wasn't particularly thrilled, and he came back to training camp and raised a lot of issues at his press conference. And then after that, was a good soldier for the next couple of years. Never said any that I can remember, never said anything way off the reservation, never said anything real nasty, never did any. He was fine. I think the revisionist history about how Rodgers was at the end is really unfair to him. Like, he couldn't decide. Sure, he would, in his advanced football age say, well, you never know how many of these you got left. Like, that's just football player talk. What Giannis is doing right now is not that. We're hearing from agents. We're hearing locker room report. Like, that didn't happen with Rodgers at the end. And Q comments on live stream, Giannis is turning into Rodgers. No, he's not. Rodgers never did anything like this. He said in his press conference after Tampa that he didn't know. But you know why he didn't know? Because the Packers had just drafted his replacement. The Packers drafted Rodgers because Favre wouldn't make up his mind. They didn't draft Jordan Love for that reason. Rodgers wasn't really talking about retiring past, any other than, doing an interview. Well, how long do you think you're going to play? Well, you never know, And Rodgers speaks pretty philosophically, but I never thought that he was going to walk away pre-2021, and I never thought he was going to retire after Jordan Love got there. I always figured that he'd finish his career elsewhere. He said that. What Giannis is doing right now is way more annoying than what Rodgers did, as it pertained to his future with his team. You could talk about Rodgers, going on McAfee or, pooping in a bucket or whatever. Sure, if you found that annoying, but that's not football related. I don't really care what Giannis does off the field. I don't really care what Rodgers does for the purpose of this conversation off the field. So I get a little sick of saying, like, well, I don't know. Giannis is turning into Rodgers. This is way worse than anything Rodgers did when discussing his place with the Packers. If you found him annoying on McAfee, fine. That's not what this is. In fact, part of me wishes Giannis would just speak publicly about it. Like, part of me wishes he would come out and say. And for Giannis to operate through Chris Haynes to say, well, we had a team meeting and I told the guys just focus on basketball. Don't focus on the outside noise. That's out of our control. Brother, it's in your control. You control it. So I'll defend Aaron Rodgers. I think a lot of you are like, I think a lot of you are really misrepresenting how it ended with Rodgers. He was unhappy at that press conference when he came back in 21, but he was never, well, I don't know, this might be. It was very clear that the Packers and Rodgers were going to end. And that was because the Packers drafted his replacement. They were ready to move on. And I think when that happened, Rodgers was ready to probably pretty ready to move on too. They had missed the playoffs, which probably helped. You guys are misrepresenting. You're misremembering. Remembering Rodgers as annoying at the end is very different than remembering him for doing what Favre did or for what Rodgers did or what Giannis is doing currently. And now we have too many sports figures that are getting mentioned, so I'm mixing up their names. I think a lot of you are, wow, Rodgers was the worst. Well, yeah, he was annoying, but not what Giannis is doing right now is way more annoying to me than Rodgers going on McAfee and talking about pooping in a bucket and doing ayahuasca. That is its own thing. This is way more annoying. This is Favre. This is full Favre. This is the reason the Packers drafted Rodgers. Rodgers was annoying, but not like this. I would take pooping in a bucket on McAfee over what Giannis is doing. Bill Michaels Huddle coming up next.